What is going on, guys? Noah White here again. Figured I'd take you guys with me to go get some coffee this morning because I'm gonna need it. A little tired today. I know I haven't posted in a while as usual, and I always feel like I'm apologizing to you guys all the time, but I'm sure you guys get it. I just have other things to do. I got kids, so I'm always going to be busy doing something. Not to mention this past week was just insanely hot, and it was like 107, 108 degrees, and I mean, that's hot to me. Might not be hot to you folks that live like in Arizona or something like that, but for where I live at, that's pretty damn hot. So figured I'd just go and drive this in my Nissan, in the 240SX, and I've been loving this thing since I did the rear subframe bushings and did the LSD and all that stuff. This thing definitely handles a lot better, or at least I can notice the difference when going around turns. The rear end is a lot more settled, and it just feels good overall. So I'm pretty excited with it. But I have been having an issue with I think it's my fan clutch. You guys, I don't know if you can hear it. Hear all that squeaking? It's literally my belt just slipping on the fan pulley. I think my fan clutch is like locked on, like it's completely just on, spinning all the time because it's really loud. Usually it should disengage, but I don't know. I bought a new fan clutch. I'll put that on at some point, but that's not really what today's video is about. I'm just bringing you guys along with me to go pick up some coffee. Just wanted to drive this car because I haven't driven in a while. It's dirty, but sucks driving this now though, because that stupid noise, man. I'm shifting at like 2,500 RPMs now, because if I go any higher than that, it sounds like a bunch of rats in my engine bay. It's kind of embarrassing, so definitely got to get that fixed. Just picked up the coffee. I'm a real basic person. Iced black coffee. About as exciting as they come. Also had to pick one up for the wife, of course. And you 240 owners know where your cup holder is, the chains holder. All right, let's get back to the house so we can start working on what we have to do today. Well, made it back home, got some coffee, got some energy now. Pretty tired. It's a nice day today. It's not, 108 degrees outside like it has been. Got the garage empty, so I'm gonna be working on the Civic today. I've been waiting for, this part to come in. I ordered it. I ordered the part probably like 2 weeks ago, and I don't know what took so long for them to ship it, but anyway, finally got here. And so I've been waiting to make a video on the Civic, because as you guys know, I've been just trying to decide what to do with the Civic, and this part that I'm going to install is definitely going to be a step in the direction I'm trying to go with the Civic. So maybe you guys will be able to figure it out, maybe not, but the modification I'm going to do to the Civic today, it'll help in more ways than I need it to. Basically meaning it's going to help with what I want to do with the Civic, while also helping just in general with the normal drivability of the Civic. So I'm gonna just get the Civic in the garage. I'll go get the parts and I will show you what I'm gonna install today. All right, got the Civic in the garage, and man, I always mention my cars get so dirty just sitting out here. I don't know if you guys can even see, wait, maybe you can see on the trunk. Kind of hard because it's white, but you can literally see like this layer of dirt on here. But anyway, I need to wash this thing. Maybe I'll wash it after I get done. But yeah, so got the Civic in the garage, and let me show you what I got going today. So went on ahead and ordered some things from Private Label Manufacturing, PLM for short. I am running the turbo studs on the IS300 from this company. It's a pretty good company. Anyway, they had a sale, so I was able to get some bars for the Civic traction bar. So I'm going to be installing this today on the Civic. It's a pretty nice piece. Obviously, just mild steel, painted black. Got some aluminum radius arms, which will be a good upgrade. Comes with some nice spherical bushings or Heim joints so that I can adjust the lower control arms as I need to. It doesn't come with instructions. It only comes with all the bolts and the brackets and all that stuff. So I don't know, I have to figure out how all this is going to go together. But as you guys know, the stock subframes or the stock cross member that runs underneath the bottom of these radiators are really thick. So let me actually get the hood open and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I don't know how well you can really see down there, or if you go back to when I actually put the B series in here, the B series is already tight enough already. I've already had to make some modifications to that cross member that's down at the bottom. You can see the little radius arm right there goes out to the lower control arm. So I mean, these things, they're really thick. I mean, the whole cross member is probably like this wide under there, and if I ever decided to want to run AC in here, which I kind of want to, you know, that whole cross member is going to be in the way down there, and it's super thick. It's really big. Here's a pretty good shot of it right there. That just giant rusty piece at the bottom down there with that plug in it. So it's pretty big as compared to just going ahead and slapping that bar in there. There's going to be a major difference. So kind of going to show you guys how to get this installed. If you guys have never installed a traction bar on any Honda, they pretty much all look just like that, and it's going to do one of two things for me. It's going to basically get rid of the stock radius arm bushings. The radius arm bushings down there, there's a bushing that's within this cross member that just gets really worn out because it's just rubber, and kind of makes the car feel a bit unstable when you're going around turns. Like you can feel the whole wheel and stuff moving around, because the wheel actually will be moving like this way, like this, as you're going around turns, or if you're accelerating hard, just anything like that in general. So traction bars aren't just, you know, what they imply. I mean, obviously they help with keeping the wheels centered in the wheel well, but they'll also help kind of with handling as well, not just drag racing. Like most people tend to think that's what their sole purpose is for drag racing, but they'll help with the overall suspension geometry going around turns by just locating the lower control arm in one position. Obviously these are fixed Heim joints. They're not going to move. They're solid, so whatever I set it at, that's what they're going to be. As with bushings, even if you go to polyurethane bushings, there's still going to be some deflection, and especially with the OE rubber bushings, which are gone by now, that thing probably moves around a bunch. So let's get this thing in the air and we'll get working at it. As you can see here, you have your stock radius arm, which is this guy right here, and it goes down and it gets bolted to the lower control arm. From here it goes up to, let me show you underneath, it goes up to the stock cross member here, or subframe, whatever you want to call it. People call these a factory traction rod, but that's our traction bars, but it's not really what it is. You can see how big this thing is. I'm sorry for the angle, but this thing is huge. Like, it's thick. I had to beat it out right here in order to clear the factory exhaust. So the goal is to just get rid of this big giant thing right here. The bushings in here, you can tell the stuff's all rusted. The bushings in here are just shot. So like I said, I need to get rid of all of this huge guy right here. Fortunately, I think it's pretty easy to get them off. You just got to take, there's 2 bolts. I don't know if I can show you. There's 2 bolts that attach this bar to here, and I mean, I'm trying to take the simplest way I can to get them off. There's really not any space. Ideally, you should probably take off the suspension fork, even move the axle out of the way so you can get to the 2 17mm bolts that are on top. But as you can see over here on this side, what I have is a wrench just sitting right on top there, ratcheting 17, and I'm able to kind of get the bolts out. So I'm going to try that way first. That way I don't have to take apart anything else, and that would be the easiest way for me to go about doing that. Then after that, you can see there's just these 2 17, I think these are 17s, could be 19s. These 2 bolts here, and then the same 2 bolts on the other side right here, holding the subframe on. So I believe that's all there is. I don't think it's attached to anything else. The radiator sits in its own little, you know, pockets right here. I don't think this subframe is actually holding or supporting anything else. The factory, if you do have the factory D series, there is an engine mount that's attached to this that you need to take off in the front, but obviously I have the B series and I'm only using 3 mounts, so I don't have that issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and just plug away at this some more, trying to get this off, and you know, go from there. Hopefully it's not a struggle. Got the factory cross member out. It was actually pretty easy to get it out. You can see this thing is whooped. Like I said, you guys are using the stock D series. There actually would be a bracket right here. Like the bracket is still here, but I just hit it in to clear the B series. But you'd have to take the mount off of that front one in order to take this out. But you can see how big this thing is. Really not too heavy because it's just hollow. It's just stamped steel that's riveted together. So I don't think there'll be any real weight savings here, but definitely what I'm going to gain as far as room is concerned is good. And like I said, I'm going to be going away from the these. Let me see if I can hold this in place. You can see how this thing moves a lot, this radius arm, because there's just rubber bushings in there, and you know, like I said, this is a 1989, and I'm sure no one's ever replaced them, so they're just bad. But yeah, let me pull the new traction bar out of the box and show you guys what it looks like laying next to it. Yeah, there's a huge difference here. Sorry, the lighting. You can see there's a major difference between the two as far as the thickness is concerned. This is huge, takes up a lot of space, and then this one is a lot thinner, which basically will translate into, when I look down here, I won't even see any of that cross member anymore. I probably barely will even see the traction bar down there, which is going to be good. So from underneath, see, I'll gain a tremendous amount of room. So all that's going to be gone. Basically all I can see right now is the radiator, and then there goes the bottom part of the header right there. But that, just to show you how big that is, it's huge. So let me go ahead and try and figure out this bracketry, since it didn't come with instructions. That way I can pretty much show you guys how to put this bar on if you are going to run this bar. Actually, they only got this bar for about $130, so it was on sale. It's originally like $250. They had like a pretty big sale going on, so I got lucky. Alright, one thing I forgot to mention is you do have to remove the factory tow hooks. There's 3 14mm bolts that are in here. This is on the driver's side, just to the left of the radiator. So just reach up in here and get these 3 bolts off. Same for the other side. Shouldn't be too hard to do. Alright, so after you got the tow hooks removed, like I said, you're going to be reusing those same 14mm bolts. You want to make sure that the bar is sitting just like this, with these tabs kind of angled out towards the wheels in the front. And then you'll just raise this up in there and you'll bolt this into the same position that you pulled those tow hooks out of using those same 14mm bolts. That will be your first step. That way you don't have to, I wouldn't go on ahead and tighten it down on the way, just go on ahead and get it up in there and just hand tighten the bolts. That way the bar will be in position where it needs to be, and you can go on ahead and figure out all the rest of the brackets as I'm trying to do here. I wish I gave some instructions, but there's just not any. So I don't know, it's pretty easy though. We could figure it out. All right, after you get the main bar attached to the factory tow hook location, you're gonna grab one of the black brackets and put it on just like so. Obviously there's a left and a right side. You're gonna have to figure this out. From what I can tell, this fits best with this going behind or inside the bracket rather than on the outside. I've been reading that these kits are kind of, you know, they may vary from year to year, like the earlier EF chassis versus the later, like the 88 and 89 versus the 90 and 91. So there might be slight differences with them, but as far as I can tell, this right here should work. I'm using one of their supply bolts, and all I did was take the washer off of the old, like off of this old factory big bolt. I took the washer off and I'm going to use it on here, and that should be fine. And then obviously you can tell right away, I'm using one of the supply bolts in here just to show you guys that this bolt is way too long. So I'm probably just going to go to the hardware store and get my own bolts that are much shorter, so that way this can work. Let me show you what it looks like from the front, because from the front it's way too long. You can see right there, like that bolt is just sticking through far too much. I mean, I won't even be able to tighten it up, but as you can see, that's pretty much how that's supposed to go on both sides. Alright, so now comes where it's time to mount these radius arms to the lower control arms. You'll notice that there's two different kinds of heim joints. There's this one that's not as thick. It's still a heim joint, but it's just not that thick. And then there's the other side that obviously has, you know, more space right here. This side right here is designed to go attached directly to the traction bar on this side, and then the other side is obviously much flatter, so that way you can bolt it to the lower control arm and have the clearance you need between the axle shaft and the lower control arm. Now there are different ways you can mount this to this control arm, and let me show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so in here you can see that I have the short side just resting in place. Now I believe how this kit is designed is to run this piece like this, and you sit this piece right here on top of it like this, so you can have both sides straddling both of the holes. Then you would run one of the supplied bolts straight through here with a washer, and I will secure that side. And then I believe, you know, now there's space over here. You can see my thumb there's wide open space. I believe you're supposed to use one of these spacers over here underneath the black spacer, so that way you can run one of the supply bolts. I think it's supposed to sit just like this. So the spacer's over there, you run one of the supplied bolts right through, and then the other supply bolt through this other side. I believe that's how it's supposed to be designed. However, that puts it pretty close to the axle. You can see I have the axle out right now. If I put it back in there, it's really close to there. And granted, you're never going to be driving around at max, you know, droop like this with the suspensions all the way down. So it will be perfectly fine set up like this. The problem with this is they only give you so many bolts to use, and there's technically one bolt missing. You'd have to go to the store and get a bolt in order to run it this way. Now the way I'm going to run it, you know, and it might not, you guys might not like it, but still it's going to accomplish the same thing, is I'm not going to run this black guy at all. I'm not going to run this spacer in the back. All I'm going to do is run a bolt straight down into this control arm. I've done this before in the past. It's perfectly fine. I would drive around for 2 or 3 years with this same type of setup, and I never had any issues. So if you wanted to try and save some money, you can use one of the supplied bolts, use this spacer that they give you, and run this straight down. Problem with this is going to be pretty tall, sticking up out of here. It shouldn't hit the axle at all, but it will be pretty close. What I actually went on ahead and did is I went to the store, I got myself some shorter bolts, which are M12 by 125 by 45 millimeters long, so you can see them compared to this bolt. It's quite a bit short. It's quite a bit shorter than this bolt. What I'm going to do is use these washers I bought, put it on here, and then I'm just going to stick that straight through here and bolt it up and be good to go. Then I went on ahead, I'm going to go on ahead and use some washers on this side as well as the other side. So I got that all situated, and the good thing about this is, as I was having an issue with, remember I was having an issue with this bolt right here, where if I use one of the supplied bolts, which would be this guy, it's way too long, I won't be able to tighten it, so I can go on ahead and use one of the OEM bolts that was on the lower control arm. I was able to just use one of those, stick it straight through here, put a washer on the other side and one of their locking nuts, and that'll get me good over here. So let me go on ahead and stop talking and just kind of get back to working on this, and I'll show you guys how I got it set up. Alright, I've got everything tightened down. The tow hooks are tightened down, all the 14 millimeters, and the little L bracket guys that are right here on the frame rail. Got that all tightened down. Got the radius rods, or traction bars, whatever you want to call them. Those are tightened down to the lower control arm as well. The adjustments are loose, and what I suggest doing is, you don't have to put the wheel back on, but you kind of can't guess where your car is going to ride at. Right now I put my wheel on, I have the lower control arm jacked up as high as I can get it. Obviously you're going to be going against the spring pressure, so at some point it won't go up anymore. You'll actually just be lifting the car up off the jack stands. That is my circumstance right now. What you want to do is kind of get the car at ride height, center your wheel. I'm going to go inside and turn the wheel straight. You're trying to get your wheel centered within the wheel well, and that way it's pretty close to, you know, riding where it will be at when it's actually on the ground. Obviously if your car is lowered, you'll have to jack this up a lot more to get your wheel where it should be. So from there, what you want to do is then go on ahead and make your adjustments. So right now I'm going to spin this end in or out depending on what I need to do in order to get it to line up with these holes right here and bolt up into place. You want to set this at your ride height, because if you let the suspension droop all the way down, you're going to end up with a really long rod or a long measurement, so that when you go on ahead and set it back down on the ground, your wheel is actually going to be pushed back looking like it's not centered. So that's why I suggest doing this at ride height, so that your wheel is mostly centered, and then when it goes through its range of motion, which, let's be honest, it's not going to be full compressed. Well, it might get full compressed if you take the car on a track, but chances are if you have coilovers, your springs are going to be stiff, so it's really not going to move too much from this position. Granted, my car is on stock suspension, so there is a high chance that it will go to full compression and possibly all the way full extension, and that's fine, as long as this is going to be where it needs to be to keep the wheel in its range of motion. So basically get the car ride height level, then set up your heim joints and get that stuff positioned how you want to. If you are going out for drag racing,
ideally you would want the control arms to be pulled towards the front of the car slightly. You don't want to pull them all the way forward, but you want to pull them slightly, so that way when you do go to launch the car, naturally the control arm wants to move back. This being a solid rod with no bushings on it or any rubber at all will do a better job at keeping the lower control arm in place, thus reducing wheel hop. At least that's what these things are supposed to do. All right, I got both rods in. This wheel is mostly centered. It may be slightly forward some, but when I lower the car back down, it should naturally find its way back to the center. And I got everything tightened up on there. Let me show you what it looks like on the bottom. So, as I mentioned before, traction was definitely a thing that these things are supposed to work for, but also look at how much more room you get. If you remember, the stock cross member was actually almost touching this the header right here, but look at all of this space right here now. So, you know, if I did decide to want to run an AC compressor, it'll fit right here, all this space, and I just have a lot more room in general here to do whatever I need to do. I can run a different kind of header or whatever, whereas when you run the factory cross member, you're pretty much limited to a 4 to 2 to 1 type of header because nothing else will fit. But there is a tremendous amount of room under here now, so it makes servicing things a little bit easier. And like I said, the benefit of having just a solid mounted radius arm here now, I don't have to deal with any more deflection or any more play. So this is all solid now, which is pretty good. So I hope that this mod actually helps the car drive a little bit better. It doesn't really drive terrible, but when I do go over bumps and stuff, I can't notice that the lower control arm and the kind of suspension in the front just moves around a bit too much for my liking. And I definitely notice these things when I'm driving, so this should help with that. And also, like I said, it should clear up a lot of room below the car, especially for the plans I do now have for this car. I know before I told you I was unsure what to do with the Civic, but now I pretty much have an idea of what I'm going to try and do with it, and this mod right here definitely helps for the future. So I don't think I should have any room issues or clearance issues. As you can see when I look down there now, all I see is that one bar on that side and the other side, whereas before I see that whole cross member. Now there's just nothing but daylight in there. So yeah, it should definitely help out a lot with room and space. So yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in to the video, and as usual, I hope that you guys do get something out of this. I try to be as informative as I can, and that way you guys with these Civics, especially you guys who bought this specific traction bar, now know how to install it, or at least the way that I installed it, and it'll work just fine. So sorry for the upload delays. Like I said, just waiting on parts and just kind of deciding what I'm going to do with both these cars. I will give you guys a sneak peek of what's to come with the Civic. I did go and pick this part up probably like 2 weeks ago, and well, maybe like a week ago. And I can't show you everything, but I'll just show you just a little piece of it. It's hiding in this bag. That's all you get to see, just the top. Yeah, that's all you get to see, just a tiny bit. So if you guys are around Hondas, you probably already know what that is, especially if you've been messing with Hondas for a long time. However, maybe you guys will just have to wait to see what's going on. Until then, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.